Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, October 27th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Concern tonight in one local district over an increase of COVID-19 cases with teachers and students quarantined and calls for closing down in-class learning. While in another district right now, parents are protesting to open up more schools and leaders are about to make a decision. Our coverage begins with KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne.
Today marks 1 week since Vista Schools reopened and went back to in-person learning known as Vista Classic. As of today, the district's website shows 4 different confirmed COVID cases, resulting in hundreds of students having to go into quarantine. Since the opening on October 20th, 2 COVID cases have been confirmed at Mission Vista High School, 1 at Roosevelt Middle School, and 1 at Alamosa Park Elementary. President of the Vista Teachers Association, Carrie Avila, says these were the outbreaks teachers were concerned about when they rallied outside of the last board meeting when the district moved forward with reopening schools.
So a week ago, we sounded the alarm of many of our educators saying that our working conditions weren't ready to return yet, and they pushed forward to get it done quickly, and now here we are. We have 4 outbreaks within a week. We have hundreds of teachers and students quarantined.
In a community update released today by the Vista Unified School District, Superintendent Matt Doyle said, "When we locate COVID-19 positive cases, we are compelled to quarantine large number of students and staff. This level of quarantine will have an impact on our ability to maintain a viable Vista Classic model. If this trend continues, we will be forced to pivot back to Vista Virtual, not due to COVID-19 virus, but rather due to the lack of available staff to fully support the Vista Classic learning environment."
It's called Vista Classic, which is a brand that has nostalgia for the way school used to be. And just naming it Vista Classic was a really unfortunate link that was so divisive because it can't be like it used to be.
A special virtual board meeting has been scheduled for tonight at 6 p.m. to review and revise the school reopening plan and learning model structure as needed. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Now to efforts underway to reopen schools in the San Diego Unified School District. As education reporter Joe Hong shows us, new plans were unveiled today.
San Diego Unified now has a time frame for when it will launch Phase 2 of resuming in-person instruction. As soon as January 4th, the district expects to have elementary school students back on campuses 4 days a week. Middle and high school students will be back 2 days a week starting January 25th. That's as long as the county can maintain or lower the current rate of COVID cases. District officials made the announcement at a press conference on Tuesday where they urged local residents to help bring down local infection rates so schools can reopen.
I would like to make an appeal to our community to assist us in reopening our schools. Personally, I do not believe that bars and restaurants should be open before our schools are open.
The district launched Phase 1 of its reopening plan on October 13th. Elementary school-age students at risk of falling behind are able to make appointments for in-person learning. In the coming month, the district plans to expand Phase 1 to middle and high school students, even if San Diego County enters the more restrictive purple tier for COVID infections, as is allowed by state guidelines. However, if the county enters the purple tier, the district would not be able to launch Phase 2.
We actually anticipate that San Diego County will move into the purple tier sometime in the next few weeks. We know that once the county moves into the purple tier, we can continue with our Phase 1 approach, but what we cannot do is move then to Phase 2 and the subsequent phases.
District officials said they're also working to have a testing plan in place before the launch of Phase 2, with the goal of preventing the spread of the virus if there are positive cases among students.
I don't think there's a single district in this county, or frankly in this country, that can make the claim right now that they know that if somebody comes onto one of their campuses with the virus, that they are able to prevent the spread, because we don't have the testing that allows us to make that claim.
However, Barrera said the district would need federal stimulus funding to regularly test asymptomatic students and staff. Joe Hung, KPBS News.
There are new efforts tonight to gain more local control over how we handle COVID-19 restrictions. Supervisors voted unanimously today to ask the state for more flexibility when it comes to the color opening system and how businesses operate during the pandemic. They also got an update on local virus response. We'll stay in the red tier for another week. John Carroll has more on how the governor is balancing COVID-19 with the latest wildfires burning in our state.
None have fallen back this week, which is encouraging.
No counties in the state are entering a more restrictive tier than they were in last week, including San Diego. We remain in the red, or second most restrictive tier. 7 counties moved into less restrictive tiers. That's the good news. On the other hand, while we're not seeing a spike, our COVID numbers are slowly moving in the wrong direction.
Positivity rate over a 14-day period is holding below 3%. It's been trending down, and now we're starting to see it go slightly back up.
Even so, California is in much better shape than other parts of the country, where new cases are spiking and hospitals are full. The governor also looked ahead to when a vaccine becomes available. He announced the creation of a scientific safety work group in collaboration with the states of Washington, Oregon, and Nevada. Once a vaccine is available, that group of experts will check all the data to make sure the vaccine is safe.
We're not just going to take someone's assurance. We're going to make sure that we are objectively reviewing and be able to put our stamp of approval.
Newsom says another group of experts will look at the ethics of prioritizing the order of who gets the vaccine.
The hots are getting hotter, the dries are getting drier.
As he often does, Newsom talked about California's fight against wildfires against the backdrop of climate change and numbers that are stunning. The Silverado fire in Orange County is just one of 42 wildfires that have ignited across the state in just the past 24 hours. 6 of the top 20 wildfires in state history have occurred this year. 4.2 million acres burned, 3.2 million just since August. More than 9,300 structures destroyed, and most tragically, 31 lives lost. Of those 42 wildfires that sparked since Monday, Newsom says only 14 are still burning. He praised the work of CAL FIRE and local fire departments across the state in beating back the flames. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Whether it's our county, the U.S., or countries around the world, there's a surge in coronavirus cases. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chatlani spoke to San Diego scientists who can explain the trend.
More than 85,000 new cases of coronavirus were reported in the U.S. last Friday, breaking previous single-day records. Since October, the rise in cases has been steady in the U.S., France, Italy, India, and others.
I think this is the fall surge that most people anticipated happening. We can track previous pandemics, and we do see waves of pandemics.
Here at the Sanford Burnham Prebys Medical Discovery Institute, virologist Sumit Chanda says historically past pandemics have come in waves.
So the 1918 flu was actually 3 different waves. So I think we're entering into this fall season, which is typically where you see an increase in transmission of respiratory viruses, like coronaviruses.
He says as we enter a colder fall season where people move indoors and there are more respiratory diseases like the flu, we appear to be entering a second wave of increased virus transmission.
It's unclear what the interplay between flu and COVID is, right? You're going to be very unlikely that you'll get them at the same time, okay? But if you get the flu and you have damage to your lungs, it's more likely that if you then get COVID, you're going to have a worse outcome.
So Chunda recommends getting a flu shot so people don't burden hospital capacity or put their immune systems at risk.
We have a double whammy on our healthcare system, right? And so you're going to present with respiratory disease and you're going to take up an ICU bed if you have flu or COVID. Okay, so from a population level, it's incredibly important that you get a vaccine.
Chunda says it's important that people continue to socially distance, especially during the holidays when there are a lot of gatherings. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
We're now in the final week before Election Day, and the newest Supreme Court judge is being asked to bow out of an election case. Amy Coney Barrett was officially sworn in this morning. The Supreme Court is considering a case from Pennsylvania that has to do with counting ballots received after Election Day. A group of lawyers is asking Barrett to recuse herself due to comments made by President Trump during her nomination. As for the candidates, they're making their final pitches. Here's Nadia Romero.
In the final days before the 2020 election, Joe Biden is making a late push into traditionally red states like Georgia.
Warm Springs is a good place to talk about hope and healing.
While his running mate, Kamala Harris, travels to Texas, two states President Trump won in 2016.
People are looking for change.
Amidst the Biden blitz, President Trump is counting on Republican voters to keep red states reliable as he treks across the Midwest, hoping to once again topple the blue wall.
Hello, Michigan. This was the scene of a great victory.
The travel on the trail may put the candidates on the road to the White House, while their messages are different.
We have a full day of rallies. We have thousands and thousands of people at each one.
Stay safe and wear your mask.
Their goal is the same, reach 270 electoral college votes. Political operatives believe that path runs through the same 6 states: Arizona, Michigan, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Florida.
We got 1 week, Orlando.
President Trump won all 6 of those states in 2016. Now, 4 years later, recent polls show Biden leading or within the margin of error in all of them.
There's a red shift right now in how people are voting, and there has to be a red tide at the end of this campaign in order for him to win this thing.
As early voting shatters records and the calendar races towards next Tuesday, the candidates are crisscrossing the country, making their closing arguments to win. In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero.
And KPBS will have special coverage on election night with updated reports and a full hour of results and reaction at 10 p.m. You'll also be able to listen on KPBS radio and stream our coverage at kpbs.org. More than 700,000 San Diegans have already voted. Many of those are in the 78th Assembly District. That's the seat currently held by Todd Gloria that covers much of our coast and some inland neighborhoods. KPBS reporter Taryn Mento has more on the 2 Democrats hoping to replace him.
The 78th District stretches from Solana Beach and includes the Del Mar Fairgrounds, La Jolla Shores, Balboa Park, and down to Imperial Beach. The winner of the 78th will fight to match state funding priorities to the needs of these communities, and they'll help craft laws that affect all Californians.
I know that building those relationships and making sure that you understand the legislative process are paramount to the success.
City Councilman Chris Ward says he has the legislative experience as a former chief of staff to a state lawmaker.
Getting through sometimes 6 or 8 different committees before a bill even makes it to the governor's desk is something I've had direct experience with.
He says his budget priority will be ensuring dollars for homeless services, especially during the dire economic crisis left by COVID-19.
When you have a reduced pie and we think about the competition for many other desires across the state, we got to make sure that these revenue streams are protected so we don't lose ground.
The other candidate, political newcomer and licensed midwife Sarah Davis, says she brings a fresh perspective.
People who are passionate about climate right now, people who are passionate about housing and healthcare, are on the ground working with organizations, doing every kind of tactic, trying to make that change happen. And so having politicians who are on the same page with them is one piece of that bigger picture.
She says her top budget priority is the environment and will push to decarbonize the state's economy.
If we're subsidizing some piece of agriculture or transportation or education facility, anything, every destination that our money goes needs to have a carbon understanding attached to it.
Both candidates have plans to address climate challenges and overlap on multiple points, but they're light on funding details. Plus, Ward also has one on addressing homelessness, while Davis has one for reproductive health justice. Ward is leading the money race and has far more endorsements than Davis, but she says her experience in healthcare would bring diversity to the legislature. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
What is it like to be a first-time voter during such a strange and consequential election cycle? We have more election coverage coming up, including a story from Max Rivlin-Nadler on a teenage Mexican-American voter in North County who is casting her first ballot. That's coming up a bit later in this newscast.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the candidates make their last pitches to voters in crucial swing states as Election Day draws ever closer. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Local firefighters are up north tonight helping to contain 2 wildfires threatening homes in Orange County. These are the Silverado Fire near Irvine and the Blue Ridge Fire near Yorba Linda. More than 100,000 people were forced to evacuate in the past 24 hours, although some orders were lifted today. The Orange County Fire Authority shared this video of its crews working both locations. Strong wind we saw Monday eased a bit, but it's still a concern out there. 10 homes were destroyed in the Blue Ridge Fire. And as for the Silverado Fire, Southern California Edison is looking into whether its equipment might have played a role in the fire's cause. One woman told a reporter about spending the night in her car, and others talked about how their homes were saved.
You could see all the flames from here. We sleep here last night. I just talked to the officer if I can go home and take my medication. He said not yet. So we're just waiting.
There was a lot of prayers being said because, yes, it looked really bad all along here. I'm just so grateful that I got emotional. Very grateful for the firemen and all what they've done.
Really is nerve-wracking. I'm really happy to know that the home is not burned.
Meanwhile, here in San Diego, the wind situation has improved. Marvin Gomez has our forecast.
Hope you're having an amazing Tuesday, and thanks for tuning in to KPBS News. I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez, and here are your weather headlines. Wind subsiding as we go through the rest of our evening. Temperatures slightly cool along the coast for Wednesday and Thursday, but overall, the trend across most of Southern California into the weekend will be that warm up. Many areas will come up above average by 10 to 15 degrees. Here's a look at San Diego County for tonight. Definitely a cold one across Ramona. 38 degrees your low temperature. Escondido near 44. San Diego at 55 degrees. Quiet weather continues into Wednesday. Again, many areas staying dry across California. Overall on the warm side in many areas. 79 degrees will be the day's high across Escondido. Borrego springs into the upper 70s as well. Abundant sunshine for Mount Laguna. 61 degrees during your afternoon. Talking about our Thursday, dry weather, no major changes, no winds across the region, dry conditions pretty much everywhere, and we're going to continue to have those temperatures gradually warming up. Here's a look at the forecast along the coast. Is 75 degrees on Wednesday, 74 on Thursday, but then we get into the upper 70s for Saturday, low 80s on Sunday. Inland areas, we are in the low 80s, both on Wednesday, Thursday, and also Friday, but upper 80s on Saturday and 91 degrees into Sunday. The higher terrain, the mountains, not a lot of changes for us. We are pretty much in the 60s, a few more clouds into Friday and Saturday. The deserts also dealing with the warm-up. The last day of 70s will be on Wednesday. Then we jump to 83 on Thursday. And eventually, we continue to have those temperatures rise. Low 90s into Sunday. So it's going to be a warm weekend across the region. Back to you.
Our partners at iNewsSource found UC San Diego didn't tell state prisoners about a research privacy breach. iNewsSource investigative reporter Brad Racino explains.
UCSD researchers conducted taped interviews with inmates under a guarantee that their conversations would be private. Then they shared those tapes with the prison guards. Dr. Michael Corome is a former associate director at the U.S. Office for Human Research Protections.
So that was an egregious breach of confidentiality. It shouldn't have happened.
The study was eventually terminated in 2018, but to this day, UCSD has not told the prisoners about the breach. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Brad Racino.
And iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. Voting is a civic duty, and with that in mind, Hertz Rental Car Company wants to help you get to the polls. Hertz is offering a promotion on November 2nd and 3rd. The company will give away one free rental car when a customer reserves a car for 2 days, one free day, that is. The promotion is available at Hertz locations across the country. And if you prefer not to drive, both Uber and Lyft are also giving discounted rides to get voters to the polls. Meanwhile, Facebook is doing more than keeping people connected with friends and family. USA Today reports that the social media site has registered a record number of voters. In fact, 4.4 million people. Facebook says it's not over yet, and it's still running promotions. Online registration is also still open in many states. In North County, Mexican-American Marlene Herrera, a first-generation college student, is excited to be voting in her first ever election. As part of a collaboration with the world's Every 30 Seconds, which looks at the young Latino electorate in the U.S., KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us how one voter fills out her ballot and tries to empower her generation.
It felt so weird grabbing because I'm like, okay, this is actually happening now. I actually have to fill in bubbles.
For months, 18-year-old Marlene Herrera has been anticipating this moment.
All right, off the bat, I was very surprised when I actually saw Kanye West's name on here.
We're chatting over Zoom, and she's opening up the envelope sent to her from the state, revealing her double-sided ballot. The first vote is the easiest for her, for president. After watching the first presidential debate, she says she's seen enough of President Donald Trump.
He was kind of just, let me talk, let me say stuff. And it was kind of like, you should have been respectful. Should have given him at least his 2 minutes at least to talk.
And then she was shocked when the president campaigned shortly after his COVID-19 diagnosis.
He's putting other people at risk at this point. Like, he's always been, it wasn't handled correctly to begin with. And I was like, and now he's returning to the White House without a mask on.
Marlene has family members voting for Trump, and she's tried to understand why they're doing that. She recalls one conversation she had with a Trump-supporting family member, but was unconvinced by his argument.
He's like, think about it this way. He's going to want to help his people first before he helps anyone else. That, I think in his head, part of it made sense, but for me, that line bothered me a lot. If you're an American, you're an American. There shouldn't be, I'm going to look after my white people. That shouldn't be the case. That's racism.
It's that racism that's made it hard for Marlene these past 4 years. She felt like she had to hide who she was while in high school.
I went to a very white, relevant school, and it would always make me so scared to speak up because I was a minority within compared to them. So, you know, and I think when he became president, it got even worse, where it was kind of like, now I need to, let me watch what I'm saying, let me watch my views and stuff. Because I kind of just went into a corner where I didn't want anyone to be against me or see me a certain light. And sometimes to this day, I regret doing that. I wish I would have spoken against them more.
She also wanted to speak out more about the treatment of migrant children in Border Patrol custody.
You never want to see kids in that situation, ever.
Yeah.
They're kids, you know, they're people.
Yeah.
Have at least a toothbrush and a toothpaste.
Mm-hmm.
Clean water, somewhere to like shower and stuff. It's just
Marlene now sees her vote as half against Trump and half in support of Biden's policies. Biden was never really her candidate. Bernie Sanders was.
I'm very much hoping Biden holds some truth to his words. I don't want another 4 years filled with unfulfilled promises.
Marlene wasn't able to vote for Bernie Sanders back in the primary. She was 17 when California's presidential primary took place and ineligible to vote. Now, she'll be able to help other first-time voters in that situation. A proposal on her ballot makes 17-year-olds eligible to vote in primaries if they'll turn 18 by the general election.
As someone who was 17 for most of 2020, not being able to give at least some type of voice before the general election very much was frustrating, because as a 17-year-old, having to, because I was keeping up with the presidential thing, and so why wouldn't we be given that vote?
In February, when I first met Marlene, she told me she was determined to make sure her vote had an impact. She now feels like it does. She wants young people to change the direction of the country. Over the next few days, she'll be able to track her ballot online all the way to the county registrar's office to make sure it gets counted.
Wow, this has been a ride.
Max Adler, KPBS News.
The KPBS Voter Guide can help you organize your ballot. It's a special online resource that you can find right now on our website, kpbs.org. The Voter Guide has information on all the candidates and ballot measures that are unique to your own neighborhood. Just click the Election 2020 link that you find on our homepage to get started. And you can also find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.